All right, guys, this is your first lesson of the week, and remember, it's only one of 3. And at the end of this one, rather than doing some work on your own, you're actually, or meaning in like your SAB or your homework journal, you're actually going to do a really short 4-question quiz. The first 2 questions are insanely easy, and the second 2 are a little harder, but I've given you hints along the way. So I think it'll be super easy. I just want to see where you're at. So before I start, I want to remind you that you're doing metric conversions and also customary, and what our lesson is for today is another customary conversion, but this time is talking about weight. So think about how you weigh yourself. If you were to step on a scale, you usually measure yourself in pounds, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. So you should have your SAB open, and we are open to lesson 8-6, and we have to talk a little fractions today because with weight, since we've got such a wide range of ways to measure weight, we need fractional parts in order to figure that out. Let me show you what I mean by that. So in customary, we have ounces, pounds, and tons, and I want you to notice the difference between them. So there are 16 little ounces in a pound, and they're telling you that a pound, you know, is the middle section of this conversions. But then all of a sudden, the only next thing that we jump up to is just a ton, 1 ton. And we say that word a lot, like we measure something like, oh man, that thing is so heavy it weighs a ton. But a ton actually has a real measurement, which is 2,000 pounds, okay? So for here, when we're talking about something that weighs less than a pound, we don't really have a good word for that, for our ounces, but we don't say something necessarily all the time like, oh, that weighs 0.4 ounces. Instead, we figure out how to turn that into fractions. So that's where this table kind of comes in handy. They're telling you that if you have, rather than just looking at something and figuring out how many ounces are in it, we could take a number of ounces and figure out what fractional part of a pound that is. So for example, if you had 1 ounce, which is very small amount of something to measure, the way that we would write that in pounds is 1/16. And a reason, again, is because you have 16 ounces in an entire pound, and they're telling you that you only have 1 ounce. So you'd write that as 1 ounce out of the 16 ounces that there are in a pound. So here, for 2 ounces, this was actually first 2 ounces out of 16 ounces in total for a pound, but we went ahead and simplified that to make that 1/8 of a pound. So if you were to go to the grocery store, let's say that you're trying to make, I don't know, something delicious for dinner, maybe spaghetti and meatballs. You need to figure out how much meat to buy. Well, rather than just buying like a pound of meat, you might have to buy 1 pound and a quarter, or 1.5 pounds, or 1 3/4 pounds. That's kind of how we measure out our pounds or ounces or tons of meat, okay? So for 4 ounces, remember that would be 4 ounces out of the entire 16 that there are in 1 pound, and altogether that's going to be 1/4 of a pound. Okay, then for 8, that would be 8 ounces out of 16 ounces altogether, which then would give us basically a 1/2 pound, because that's our equivalent fraction there. 8/16 is 1/2. And then finally, if I had 12 pounds out of 6, gosh, I did it again. If I had 12 ounces out of 16 ounces that there are in a pound, that actually reduces down to 3/4. So these are all basically what I would say are pounds. The 8 ounces is 1/2 pound, 12 ounces is 3/4 of a pound, 1 ounce is 1/16 of a pound. So these are all your labels in pounds, okay? So now let's actually put that to some use and do some conversions here. So here they're telling you to convert to a smaller unit. And here, oh, hiccups again. And here's what you have to visualize. If I am labeling, or if I'm measuring here in tons, tons is a really big measurement. So when you've got 4 tons, that's a ton of, see, I used it right there. That is a big, big measurement. So you're going to have a lot of these pounds because the pounds are smaller than the ton. So because of that, you just have to take your 4 tons and we are going to multiply it by this larger number. So there are 2,000 pounds in a ton. So if I had 4 tons, that's just going to be 4 times 2,000, which will give us 8,000. Okay? The opposite of that, however, is if you're converting to something that's larger. So for example, if I told you that I had 144 ounces of something and I wanted to figure out how many pounds that is, imagine that you need 16 little ounces to create 1 pound, that means that you're going to end up dividing this material. So I'm going to take my 144 ounces, I'm going to divide it by 16 because there are 16 ounces in a pound, and that helped me figure out that that's 9 pounds altogether. So let's do some examples together. Let's look at number 2. It wants to go from ounces to pound, and that's this one right here. That's going, we're converting to a larger unit, so that means I'm going to end up dividing here. And what I'm going to end up dividing by is 16, because once again there are 16 ounces in a pound. So that's going to be 64 divided by 16, and you're going to learn pretty quick that that actually doesn't help you a ton. So instead what might be better is to try and find a number that you think would multiply by 16. So you're going to use some number sense. So let's try 3, because I think that 3 times 20 would be 60. So even though I think that might be too small, we could still just try this out. 3 times 6 is 18. Carry my 1. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4. So that's only 48 ounces, and I bet I could do one more. So I'm going to try 16 times 4. 4 times 6 is 24. Yep, there we go. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 2 is 6. So that tells me then that there are 4 pounds in 64 ounces. Okay, let me erase that guy. So now let's try another one. I'm going from tons. I want to know how many tons there are in 10,000 pounds. Now they've written it kind of backwards. So really what I'm doing is I am still converting to a larger unit because tons are bigger than pounds. I'm actually going to take this number and I'm going to divide it up by the number of pounds there are in a ton, which is 2,000. So I'm going to take 10,000 and I'm going to divide it by 2,000. Again, what you really have to remember here is that pounds are smaller, so there's going to be more of them. Tons are bigger, so there's going to be less of them. So you want to make this number quite a bit smaller. Dividing by something like that looks really difficult, but since you have 3 zeros here and you have 3 zeros here, this can just become 10 divided by 2, which would be 5. Okay? So now for number 4, I can tell that I'm going to a smaller unit. So because I'm going from a smaller unit, remember there's going to be more of these guys, so I know that's going to be multiplication. So how many pounds are there in 1 ton? There are 2,000. So I need to take this number and multiply it by 2,000. Oops, and that will end up being 22,000 pounds. If I were you, I would maybe pause this video and try 5 through 10 on your own. That would be a really, really great helper for you to see if you're understanding this. So again, you might want to pause and try 5 through 10 on your own, because otherwise I'm going to go through them kind of quick, okay? So again, you're paused, you're trying 5 through 10, and hopefully you're coming back after solving those so I can go through these a little faster. Here I am converting to a smaller unit because ounces are smaller than pounds. So because of that, I'm going to multiply. And what I'm going to end up multiplying it by is 16, because there are 16 ounces in a pound. And 16 times 16, I'll save us a little bit of time, is 256 ounces. So that would be your answer to number 5. Number 6, I am going from pounds to tons, which means I am converting to a larger unit. So because of that, I need to divide to show my smaller number to represent a bigger amount. So that's going to be dividing by 2,000. Again, as long as you have the same number of zeros, you can just cross those out. 14 divided by 2 is 7. You guys can also think about this realistically. If for some reason you had taken 14,000 and you multiplied it by 2,000, think about what you've done at the end. Tons are really big. For example, an elephant might be, I don't know, 8 tons or something like that. I don't actually know. Don't quote me on that. But it would make sense for this number to be 28 million or whatever this would have become, so that you could tell that you had done something wrong. So use your number sense there to see if your answer is correct. Okay, this time I'm going I'm converting again to a larger unit. So because of that, I'm going to end up dividing, and I'm going to divide by 16 because there are 16 ounces in a pound. So that'll be 10 pounds. Here, ooh, I've got a quarter, so that's going to be, I got to be careful there. I might need to figure out first how many pounds, or excuse me, how many ounces a pound is. So you got to keep that in mind. But basically, I am going from pounds to ounces, which means I am converting to a smaller unit. And so that means I'm going to end up multiplying. So what am I multiplying it by? I'm multiplying it by 16. So I need to take 5 1/4 and multiply that by 16. So I'm going to shoot down here real quick. 5 1/4 times 16 is what I'm trying. I can't do that yet. I need to convert this first. I'm going to make this 21/4 times 16. And I really hope you remember that you can cross-cancel before you start. It's going to be way easier to divide first. So if I were to divide both 16 and 4 by 4, I can reduce those down to 4 and 1. And then all I have to do is 21 times 4, which ends up being 84 ounces. The other way you could have done that, if you remembered from that chart on the other page, 1/4 ounce equals 4 actual ounces. And then you could have just done 5 times 16, which was 80. So then you could have added, oops, the 80 and the 4 together. So that's another way you could have solved that problem. And then I got a couple more on this page. You've got 848 ounces, and I am converting that to a larger unit of measurement, so that means I'm going to divide by 16. So 848 divided by 16, I'll save us, actually, that's a good one to show you. 848 divided by 16. Reminders for you, when we divide these, you kind of have to use some number sense here and figure out exactly how many times 16 is going to go into 84. I don't expect you to know that, so instead you're going to make a good estimate. And I'm going to try 5 because I know it's the right answer. But I would have also guessed that 20 goes into 84 4 times. But since 20 was a pretty high estimate, I would go down a little bit. So 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 3 is 80. So that would actually work perfect. So that's going to, well, not perfect, but get me really close. And then I can see that 16 goes into 48 exactly 3 times. Okay, so that will be 53 pounds all together. And now I also just realized that I only have a couple more minutes for this video, so the answer to number 10 is 45. Again, I hope you did those ones on your own. So I only have some word problems left. I'm going to probably solve 1, maybe 2, depending on time, and then remind you of your quiz today. So number 11 says a 1/4 pound package of sunflower seeds costs 79 cents. An 8-ounce package costs $1.59. Which package represents the lower cost per ounce? Gosh, that's a lot to digest. What I can see that I need to do here is figure out that 8 ounce and 1/4 pound, I need one to be the other. So why don't we change 1/4 pound to be ounces? Okay, so a 1/4 pound is going to be the same as 4 ounces if you use that little chart in the front. You also could have seen that you'd have to multiply them to equal 16. But anyway, so that's going to be 4 ounces. So a 4-ounce container costs 79 cents and an 8-ounce container costs $1.59. So let's just do 2 of these 4-ounce packages, which is going to be 2 groups of 79. 9 plus 9 is 18. That's $1.58. Holy cow, look at how close that is. So it says which package represents the lower cost per ounce, and that would be the 1/4 pound package. Okay, I'm going to rush through number 12 because I want to help you here too. Melissa is measuring 132 ounces of rice into 1-pound containers. How many 1-pound containers will she need to hold all of the rice? How many ounces of rice will she need to buy if she wants 10 pounds of rice? Well, let's start first. You would do 132 divided by 16. And the reason you're going to do that is because you're converting it to a smaller unit. And so that means you're going to divide. So 16 will go into 132. Let's just take a guess. I'm going to try 8. 8 times 6 is 48. 8 times 1 is 4 was 128. Yeah, that's definitely as close as I can get. So that's going to leave me with 4. Sorry, that's going to be an 8 there. And then what I want to remind myself is that actually becomes my fraction, but 4/16 is the same as 1/4. So that means that I would need 8 1/4 pounds of, oh, I guess that doesn't totally answer. It says how many 1-pound containers? I would end up needing 9 1-pound containers, if that makes sense. Okay? And I can't help you with the second part because of time. If you guys would like to do 13 through 15 on your own and check into Zoom, I would love to see you and help you out with those ones, because those are some really good questions. And I want to remind you, that's not what I want to show you. Oh gosh. I want to remind you, oh my gosh, that you guys have a quiz that you need to get to today, and I just need it returned to me as quickly as you can, either by text or email. Good luck. Log into Zoom if you need me.